Hello, hello. Welcome back to this week's of Lotuschatworldwide. And today we're going to jump into, hang on. Before that, everybody say hello to Jazzy and Jen.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome back. Thank you for listening into our episode last week. And this week, we're going to talk about episode 65, connection versus attachment. In terms of the context of relationships. Yeah. So maybe, Jen, you want to jump right in? What do you think is a healthy connection versus attachment in a relationship?
Yes, and I'm glad that this is a continuation of our previous episode. So if you have not watched that yet, please do check that one out. So in this episode, as ZeAnn mentioned, connection versus attachment. Let me just preface that by saying healthy connection versus attachment. So what do we mean by that? So, if we look at so many books, relationship books have been written about this subject. Like, what does it look like to be in a healthy connection with someone? And it doesn't need to be just significant other, but it could be like any loved one or even people that you work with, team that you might be in constant contact with. And then attachment. What does it mean to be attached in a connection? And when you say healthy connection, we're talking about like those healthy, things within a relationship that really kind of allow both people to be their individual selves while still being in connection and still working towards the same goals. And you both are on the same page. And that would be what we called in our last episode, interdependence. And so I welcome you all to look into what interdependence means. We defined it in the last episode, but that is what it means to be in healthy connection. Now, let me go ahead and just bring this up because when in preparation for the episode, I wanted to make sure that we also defined what it means to be in a connection with somebody in terms of the word dependence. Now, I read this really great book called The Choice for Love by Barbara De Angelis, and she has this beautiful way of explaining what it means to, be like in love with yourself and in true and authentic love with others too, like allowing you to live your authenticity in a relationship, and that being the general idea of what being in healthy connection looks like. And then I read another book called Attached, and in that book it says the same thing, like being able to depend on someone in a healthy way and vice versa is ingrained in our biology. Ever since, the first man had to work together to survive, to, basically get through every single day, we learned that being dependent on someone is something that we innately want. So that we are in that drive to be in connection it's okay. Like, it's not bad to depend on someone. It's just, who do you choose to depend on? That's when it becomes an unhealthy connection. If you choose somebody who unfortunately is not at the same level or at the same, life path that you're on. If you guys have different life paths, then that can turn it into a healthy connection if you try to hold on to it, knowing that you are both going to be walking different paths, or knowing that there are unhealthy habits or unhealthy ways of being within the connection that doesn't allow you to be your authentic self. So again, this comes full circle in terms of what it means to be in healthy connection versus attached to someone because of a need versus I want you in my life. I want you to be dependent on yourself and still work together to build this relationship. So we depend on each other. So it's a beautiful like meshing of two individual beings that makes it healthy if they're both independent. So that's my definition for you guys. Personal way of thinking about it. What do you think, Jazzy?
Yes, thank you, Jen, for leaving that up there for us. I absolutely agree with you when you had said that connection is created upon interdependence, where you guys can be two individuals who come together and share connection, essentially. And so connection to me is where you guys are synced and there's intimacy, some level of intimacy and vulnerability, and the ability to be present with one another, knowing that love is at the base. Love is what gets to be reciprocated, and that looks to me like compassion and vulnerability, holding space, just really getting to know each other on a soul core level. Like your inner being is met by both sides. And my view on attachments is that it leaves you exhausted. They could know your deepest, darkest secrets, and still that can be mistaken as a connection because it's mind-based. Like, oh, I know this about a person, and I know you, but knowing is all in a mind. And I feel like connection's really from the heart. And so there's definitely a difference between knowing someone at a core level and being attached at a surface level. Knowing facts about a person, and in attachments you can also be connected through attraction, and that's still very surface. It's not so much that it's not deep, and attachments also it feeds on different energy rather than it being like ego-based, perhaps, I guess one could say. And like I said earlier, like connection and that being love is the reciprocating element between the two.
I love that. Thank you so much, girls, for sharing that. And I agree what Jen was saying, that I think it's innate in human beings that we want to belong to someone, so that's why we are like such social creatures, that we always want to be with somebody, we want to go somewhere. But coming back to this, a healthy connection, in my view, from the previous episode, what we said was that interdependent. I think it's not always the idea of us, and us, but it's more of, there's an I and then there's a you, and occasionally there is a us, that comes in the picture. So that's a healthy sense of we get to be connected, but yet not losing my sense of self. And I think what's very important for me also is who I am when I'm with you. Do I like myself when I'm with you? I think being like connected to myself and liking the kind of person that I am when I'm with you, that kind of shows me that that's a healthy connection.
Yeah, ZeAnn, thank you for reminding everybody of taking that into consideration when in connection. Because the truth is, I think a lot of how we, experience relationship, a lot of the ways that we are in relationship really stem from experiences in our past, certain programming that has been built into our minds about what love is and what a connection looks like what attracts us to certain people ultimately. But I also think that there's an opportunity here to acknowledge where we're at when we are in connection with someone, and that there is that opportunity to rewire, quote unquote, rewire our brain and our programming to something better, which is that secure, interdependent type of being in a relationship. I don't think we should ever feel like, as Jazzy mentioned, there's that sense of vulnerability when you are in connection with someone, where if you are unable to be vulnerable in a relationship with somebody and you feel either, attacked in a way or even made to feel like your vulnerability doesn't matter, that's when it's a giant red flag. And when you know that there is a sense of attachment there because you are attached to kind of behaving in a way where you don't even want to rock the boat because you're afraid of being vulnerable, right? Or you don't want to cause like a little bit of friction because you're afraid that if you open up too much, this person's not going to understand you. So again, examples of what it's like being in a healthy connection / attachment. And attachment principles in itself teaches that most people are only as needy as their unmet needs, which is a quote from the book.
That's a good one, yeah.
Which I kind of really resonated with me because yes, I really think that our attachment styles are really based on unmet needs sometimes. And that's why we tend to stay in connection with people, because they fulfill a need versus us wanting them to be a part of what we've already built. So that takes us a nice segue into what are attachment styles. And you can definitely look this up for all our viewers and listeners out there on what are the attachment styles. I got most of my information from that great book, Attachment by Dr. Barbara De Angelis, but no, by Dr. Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. So Jazzy, would you like to take us through those different attachment styles?
I feel like you might have an in-depth one that you could provide, but I will go over the general. I would love to do that. So within relationships, we can experience, there's an avoidant style. And then there's also the anxious style and that of secure. So I know I was listening to you share earlier, and as I was doing my research upon this, it opened up some new things. So as this being fresh for you, love, go ahead and share in depth what you were sharing with me earlier.
Sure. So there are 3 different attachment styles, as Jazzy said. So we have the anxious attachment style. So this is like someone who tends to play games in order to keep someone's attention or interest, or someone has difficulty explaining what's bothering them and they expect the other person to guess, like take a wild guess. There might be tendencies to act out, feelings of jealousy, feelings of insecurities in the relationship that come up a lot when you are when you have that anxious attachment style. You get really preoccupied with the relationship. So the relationship becomes your be all, end all. You become so focused on it, you forget about other things. And you also fear that small acts that you do will ruin the relationship. So that even includes the type of language that you use. You may, in an anxious attachment style, try to refrain yourself from having those difficult conversations because you're, again, afraid to rock the boat. A very quintessential anxious attachment style. And I will tell all our listeners and viewers out there, this is the one that I resonated most with in all my relationships, in terms of like how I felt like I was dimming my lights, kind of holding my voice back in some of my relationships because I was afraid that I would say the wrong thing, do the wrong
filtering, right? Like filtering.
Exactly. It's a very filtering way of being in a relationship. And the other one is secure, which is the most healthy way to be in relationship with others, which is you communicate really well issues that come up in your relationship. You can reach a compromise during arguments, like you're really open to compromising in your relationships. You are not afraid of commitment or being dependent on the other partner is another way that you're secure in a relationship. And then the other things are you want to build more closeness. So you're open to building more closeness with your partner, and you don't play games in a secure attachment style because you know exactly who you want and where you want the relationship to go. So you don't play games. So that's a beautiful way of being in a relationship. And then the third one being avoidant. And for those of you that may identify with this, I'm just going to kind of read out a couple of them. But one is you distance yourself a lot in the relationship, whether it's through communication or even your physical appearance in the relationship. You emphasize boundaries. So you're always saying, nope, I'm only going to do this up to this point. I don't want to go there with you. So if you hear anyone say, nope, I'm not going there with you, that's an avoidant attachment style. You have a rigid way of viewing relationships and uncompromising rules. You have difficulty talking about what's going on in your relationship. So again, you avoid the communication that is necessary to build the relationship and get closer to your partner. Other things become more important. You don't really consider the relationship as important. So again, if you resonate with any of this, I welcome you all to look it up on the internet. So much information about the different attachment styles. And again, this book, and I'll just quickly show it, great book if you ever want to pick it up at your local bookstore. But yeah, it's changed my life in terms of seeing myself as that anxious type and how we can all come out of it. Because the beautiful thing about these styles is no matter which one you identify with, you have the opportunity, again, to rewire the way you think and move out of that attachment style to get to a more secure way of being in a relationship. So there you go, guys. There's all of that in a nutshell.
That's a great description of that 3 styles. And I guess as you were explaining that, I would resonate with, I like to think I'm a secure attachment style, but I think truthfully, I think I'm more of an avoidant. And I think where I get, especially at times when I'm really busy, I think I get into the whole, like, I get uncomfortable with attachment. I don't really want to spend time communicating on matters such as these, let's focus, let's just go, that kind of thing. But yes, I do like everything that you speak about. The avoidance attachment really resonates. And I think that, yeah, being able to move towards the secure attachment would be very ideal. And it kind of like made me wonder, how do we develop that attachment styles? And when I was reflecting what you were saying, I think a lot of times it comes from how we were being brought up. Like we see, the attachment figures in our life, like how my mom and my dad is when they were married, and how they were with their other partners. And yeah, I think that kind of really has a huge influence on my own attachment styles.
I love how you brought that up, because that's exactly where I was going to go with that. Is that a lot of when it comes to either of the three, I mean, like when I'm speaking about that other than secure. So when you're an avoidant or anxious, that is really dependent on the influence of what was modeled for you, how your needs were not met growing up. Because secure would be a great example of how your needs are met and how you have learned how to take responsibility for your own needs and can be able to apply that secure, safe space for a relationship to flourish. But when it comes from either end of the spectrum of avoidant and anxious, there's some sort of insecurity or instability that is occurring in oneself. So that's definitely something to examine. I resonate with all of them. Like you said, ZeAnn, I'd like to think that secure is definitely a style. And I know that I have effectively achieved this when I was in a polyamorous relationship, which is so strange because I actually experienced more turmoil on being either end of the spectrum of anxious or avoidant in monogamous relationships. So I get to learn how to do that now. And I definitely see that secure is the other end of the healing for me. And that's something for me to explore, whether it's healing some concepts around monogamous relationships and perhaps feeling trapped, or, feeling like this could be a really bad decision, or this could be, getting out of the anxiety. So I can feel anxious, or I've experienced myself feeling anxious and very avoidant and like, no, what am I committing to? What is this? Is this wrong? Is this right? Being very much in my head about things. So, and I'm also learning how to evaluate, am I attached or is this a connection? Like, it's so many layers to unpack. And it definitely comes back to, how am I loving myself? How do I quiet the chaos and coordinate so I can navigate in this fluid motion? And how do I become flow in my relationship so I can be secure? And that's the energy that I want to continue to reciprocate in the connection, is flow and ease. But first, I must learn what it means to be clear with myself. What do I stand for? What are my morals? Which I know is leading us into the next thing to look at, which is, what is a healthy relationship with yourself? So these are key elements in me allowing myself to evolve and to stay stable in the secure without the shadows of anxiousness or avoidance, because it can get complicating. And I think contrasting complications only teach us, or teach me, what I am aligned with and what I'm not aligned with. And yeah.
That's why I always, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Now that I was saying that's why I always remember during our trainings that we went through together, they always say that breakdown lead to breakthroughs, which is so true, because if you don't have to break down, you would not know what are the values that you're aligned to and what are the values that you're not aligned to. So these breakdowns are really essential. So I get to learn as an avoidant attachment style to learn to navigate through those breakdowns, comfortably. But to kind of get into what is a healthy relationship with myself, I think a healthy relationship with myself is I'm happy who I am when I'm with that person. So that's to me because I know that I'm not, forsaking my own passions and dreams and goals for the sake of someone else's, own passion and dreams as well. So I think that feeling of being connected with myself and that feeling that this is who I am and I like myself when I'm with you, that to me is a healthy relationship. What about you, Jen?
Yeah, and I love that you said that. I like the way I am when I'm with you. And the thing is, we have to go into a relationship already in love with ourselves, I think, because then no matter what relationship you're in, however it goes, you will always choose you. Because, I have said in many other episodes, my journey through relationship and what that's taught me about just what it means to be in a healthy one versus an unhealthy one. And it really takes me back to love. How much do I love myself to choose to be, to continue to be in a relationship where I can't even speak my mind, where I'm afraid of what someone's going to say, where I'm afraid that someone's going to say I'm the problem, I'm the issue, I'm the one who, when it takes two people to be in relationship, the minute that you feel that anyone is turning the tables and making it seem like as if there is so many things that you need to change or fix, is the minute that love goes out the door. And I'll tell you why. Because love, when you go in a relationship, accepts you for who you are as you are. And the person may try to grow with you, but they will never try to change you. And that's the beauty of love. So the minute that you find that difference of love versus attachment, which is attaching to somebody because they make you feel good in the moment, but they want to change you, is a big red flag. So for anyone out there, listener and viewer, who may be going through that right now, please know that we are here to support you through this. We know it's not easy to get out of like certain programmed ways of being and behaviors that you're used to and certain relationships that you're used to. But you can come out on the other side and you can be in a healthy relationship. But first, be in a relationship with yourself. Fall in love with yourself, because that'll lead to the most beautiful things, guys. Fall in love with yourself.
Fall in love with yourself before you fall in love with others.
Yes, 100%.
And I find that in the journey of things, like it is possible to heal and grow and know what it means to be two individuals coming together and learning that. And it's also very important to, I think what we could have added to this, ladies, was connection, attachment, and compatibility. So it's also like knowing like who you can actually do that with, who can you, as you both have said, being your authentic self, and is this connection truly something that fulfills the empowerment of your growth and supports you continue to evolve. Because I've also been on the end of things where I felt so discouraged in being vulnerable, and everything could feel very condescending, and so that kind of allowed me to really look at things like I question the compatibility, and comes the point where you have to make the tough decision to see if that is something that is worth continuing. Because I've also been on the end of things of just constantly justifying and being exhausted, and then finding ways to run the possible scenarios in my mind. And so I've learned, and it's that's very an attached style of way of handling a relationship, is either being attached to the possibility that it could be something, when in fact I get to look at what is, right? And what does feel good and what doesn't. And another part in loving myself is, where are my boundaries? What am I standing for? So if anyone else is going through the same thing or something similar, it's look at everything as a whole. And because I know I've been there a lot, just this and well, excusing the behavior, and then on the other end I'd just be so avoidant because it's so exhausting. I'm like, oh my god, it could be a lot. So great books, Choice for Love and Attached. I really love those recommendations. Those it definitely does take practice of unlearning what was programmed in the earlier years and what I got used to. So it's still a journey of identifying, clearing, and just coming to terms with and making the decisions that we get to make for ourselves. So
we are all in it with you guys. We can all step out of and move to the next secure stage, as I called it. We can all do it, and we are here for you. Does anyone have any last thoughts? I think we all did a great job with our episode today on healthy connection versus attachment. And I know that we'll definitely put down the names of the books that we mentioned down in the description box below this video. So yeah, anyone else have any final thoughts?
No, I think that's a really good, kind of like a part 2 of last week's topic. And I think next week, what we'll be discussing is something along the lines of soulmates and having soul contracts. So very interesting topic, which we're going to talk about. So stay tuned. If you haven't followed us, click like, follow, subscribe, both on our YouTube and Spotify channels. So that's it from us from now. Bye.
bye. See you guys soon.